sir.
Thank you, Vishal ji. Thank you, everybody.
And we do have our Mr. Innovative. Don't raise your eyebrows. I'm talking about Mr. Abhinav Agrawal, who always takes the initiative to let us know with the more interesting and the foremost thing with the new topics. Who help us about to learn a lot about the new things and what is going inside the our domestic and international market. And we do have our guest speaker of the day, CA Lokesh Shaji. He is the backbone of the today's session because without him, we are not going to getting to know what exactly is Gift City, what is the setup, what is the compliance, and what are the reporting at the end purposes. Then how we could invest and how we could start with the Gift City because this is a new concept in India as of now. So Lokesh Shah ji is with us. He has an extreme and professional background since last 20 more than 20 years. He is a partner right now in one of the leading firm in Delhi, and he is the tax practitioner as of now in merger and acquisition field, international taxation, corporate taxation, and transfer pricing. He is possessing significant exposure over various factors of tax law and also a qualified CPA. He is a recognized practitioner in the Chamber and Partners Asia Pacific 2021, Chambers and Partners Global 2019, Legal 500 Asia Pacific 2024 and 2019. He is a right now partner in Indus Law. So I am handing over today's session to CA Lokesh Shaji so that he can enlighten us regarding this new concept and how we are getting to know that yes, how does this Gujarat International Finance Tax City is going to work.
विशुल एक मिनट हमारे साथ अभी ओके मैं एक मिनट चाहूंगा रोहित बेक्टर जी हमारे चेयरमैन अंबाला ब्रांच से साथ हैं मैं चाहता हूं कि एक बारी वो स्टार्ट करें दो शब्द वो ब्रांच के बारे में एनआरसी की एक्टिविटीज में और जो भी और हम कुछ कर सकते हैं इसके बारे में कुछ बताएं सर रोहित जी
वैसे तो आई थिंक विशुल जी ने जो स्टार्ट ही करा था ना मिस्टर इनोवेटिव वो बड़ा एप्ट कैप्शन था आपके लिए अभिनव सर बिकॉज जो अब इस साल जो भी एक्टिविटीज और जो भी जो चीजें हो रही हैं वो नॉर्मली जब मैं पहले चेयरमैन नहीं था तब भी देखता था कि वो कैसे हो रही थी और कैसे हो रही है और क्या चेंजेस हो रहे हैं सो बड़ी ना अडेप्टिव और बड़ी आई वुड से जो लेटेस्ट चीजों में जो लेटेस्ट और प्रैक्टिकल जो चीजें हो रही हैं वो एनआईआरसी की तरफ से इस बार मेरे को देखने को मिल रही हैं एंड हमारे मेंबर्स भी बहुत इस बार ईगर हैं एंड दे आर वेरी पार्टिसिपेटिव हमारी ब्रांच वैसे इतनी पार्टिसिपेटिव नहीं रहती है बट जस्ट बिकॉज ऑफ द फैंटास्टिक एक्टिविटीज बीइंग टेकन बाय द एनआईआरसी इन जो जिसको आप लीड कर रहे हैं बड़े अच्छे एंड इट इज जस्ट द स्टार्टिंग अभी तो कहाँ वो कहते हैं ना वो पार्टी शुरू हुई है मोदी साहब के लिए जो बोल रहे हैं सबके पार्टी शुरू हुई है और वो वाला सीन हमारे एनआईआरसी और आईसीएआई में भी है जितने ये बूट कैंप्स चल रहे हैं जितने लोकेश जी आप तो खैर लोकेश शाह हैं गुजरात में वैसी शाह का राज है और तो आप भी जो बताएंगे गिफ्ट सिटी के बारे में बट ये जो चीजें हैं ना ये इतनी इंटरेक्टिव ये जो सेशंस हैं ये इतने अच्छे लग रहे हैं आई डोंट नो अभी देखते ही देखते मुझे लगता है पार्टिसिपेंट्स भी बहुत बढ़ जाएंगे और जो नहीं पढ़ेंगे वो मिस करेंगे इतनी अच्छी अपॉर्चुनिटीज बट in the end I would say कि Abhinav ji you are doing a fantastic job and it is not you I mean your team under your leadership which we really appreciate और ऐसे ही चलता रहा तो बड़ा अच्छा साल ये वाला निकलने वाला है एटलीस्ट अपने लिए दिनेश जी वेलकम एंड जस्ट सॉ योर ब्यूटीफुल फेस फैंटास्टिक गुड टू
रोहित भाई नमस्कार क्या हाल आपका चेयरमैन साहब अभिनव भाई नमस्कार रोहित भाई कहते हैं जिसकी निगाह जो खुद सुंदर हो उसका दिखने का ढंग सुंदर उसको सारे सुंदर दिखते हैं भाई बहुत बहुत प्रणाम आपको
सही बात बिल्कुल ठीक
दिल से सुंदर आप दिल से
थैंक यू सो मच सर थैंक यू सो मच सो अभिनव जी आप इसको लीड करें अब लोकेश जी को ज्यादा हम सुनने के सब इच्छुक हैं आप फॉरवर्ड करवाएं
बस मैं भी एक बारी ऑफिशियली इनॉग्रेट कर देता हूँ वेरी वार्म वेलकम टू ऑल द मेंबर्स ऑल द joinees of the today's session. My guest speaker Lokesh Shaji, our Nikasa chairman Jagjeet ji, our branch chairman from Ambala Rohit Bector ji, my NARC council member Dinesh Sharma ji, and my long time article or now I become a CA Vishal Singla ji to is moderator of the program. I welcome all of you in our third series of Gurukul, and second day of this session FEMA and investing in GIFT City. मेरी आप सब मेंबर से यही रिक्वेस्ट है, ये एक यूनिक टॉपिक है और आज का जो टॉपिक है फैमिली हाउस, हाउ टू ऑपरेट अ फैमिली हाउस इन गिफ्ट सिटी, इस पे आज हमारे जो गेस्ट स्पीकर है लोकेश शाह जी बताएंगे। मेरी आप सब सर एक और रिक्वेस्ट है, मुझे लग रहा है हमने रोहित भाई जितने इनिशिएटिव्स लिए हैं ना, इसमें एक दिक्कत ये हो गई है कि हमने अपनी वेबसाइट को रिवैम्प कर दिया है। तो वेबसाइट रिवैम्प करने पे हमने ये भी एक्सेस दे दिया है, जितने हमारे सीरीज सेमिनार्स होते हैं ना, हम वहाँ पे यूट्यूब का लिंक डाल देते हैं। तो जो मेंबर्स, पहले हमने ये फैसिलिटी करनी स्टार्ट करी कि जो फिजिकल अटेंड नहीं कर पाते वो वेबिनार के थ्रू अटेंड कर ले। अब जो वेबिनार भी नहीं अटेंड कर पा रहे वो बाद में जाकर यूट्यूब पे देख ले। तो लोगों को जितना एक्सेस दे दिया ना, तो इस वजह से कुछ हमारे मेंबर्स अब कम, लेकिन मेरे को बहुत सारे कॉल्स आते हैं कि सर वो उनकी यूट्यूब सीरीज उनका रिकॉर्डिंग दे दो। तो मैं आप मेंबर्स के लिए बताना चाहता हूँ कि हमने अपनी वेबसाइट के अंदर सारी प्रेजेंटेशन, सारी सीरीज, आप जितनी हमारी ये इनिशिएटिव्स हैं गुरुकुल के अंदर, वहाँ पे गुरुकुल का लोगो है, गुरुकुल में जाएंगे वहाँ पे आपको सारे सेमिनार्स के सारे प्रेजेंटेशंस और सारी यूट्यूब रिकॉर्डिंग्स मिल जाएंगी। ग्लोबल कनेक्ट की, टेकडेक की, क्रीडाशाला, शक्ति सीरीज, संपूर्ण, आयुष्मान संवाद, हमने सब में सारा डाटा अपडेट कर रखा है। मेरी आज मेंबर से एक रिक्वेस्ट और है, हम 29 जून का इस बार सीए डे सेलिब्रेट कर रहे हैं, उसकी प्लानिंग में आज ही आपको 1.5 महीने पहले एडवांस में बता रहा हूँ, 1 महीने पहले से हम लगे हुए थे उसमें प्लानिंग करने में। बहुत बड़ा शो करने वाले हैं सर हम, ये सीए डे सेलिब्रेशन अभी तक का एफर्ट्स है कि सबसे बड़ा इवेंट हम प्लान कर रहे हैं। 5,000 मेंबर्स के लिए हमने वहाँ पे अरेंजमेंट किया है, 5,000 प्लस मेंबर्स का हम टारगेट कर रहे हैं। और ये इंदिरा गांधी स्टेडियम में है, आईजे स्टेडियम में, मेन एरिना में जहाँ मोदी जी आते हैं, वहाँ प्लान कर रहे हैं। बाकी और डिटेल्स फिलहाल मैं चाहता हूँ 29 जून आप बुक कर ले, बाकी सारी डिटेल्स मैं आपको और अपकमिंग सेमिनार्स में डेट बाय डे देता रहूंगा। थैंक यू। ओवर टू लोकेश जी, प्लीज स्टार्ट द सेशन।
बहुत बढ़िया सर।
Thank you. Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. First of all, many thanks to the Institute, our alma mater, for giving me this opportunity. Abhinav ji, again, as I said, thank you very much. Being presenting for the first time as a part of NIRC, it's a great opportunity for me to come on this platform. Thank you, everyone, chairman and other members from various branches, Dinesh ji, Rohit ji, Jagjit ji. I think this is a wonderful platform, with the number of CA community being very wide, very geographically located in each and every city. As Rohit ji mentioned, yes, as a Gujarati, I am based in Delhi, but there is a special affinity with Gujarat and with GIFT City. So really delighted to be part of this platform. So I think as I think Abhinav ji gave or briefly alluded to the topic, is that GIFT City as a platform, as a regulatory regime, it is very wide. What it was probably 5-10 years back and what it is today, there is substantial difference. And we cannot really speak or cover each and every aspect of it in terms of various structures possible in GIFT City, or various compliances, or various reporting requirements. So what I have tried to do in this presentation is that at least vis-a-vis two key topics which are more prominently discussed these days. One is family offices in GIFT City, and one is bringing overseas holding companies back into GIFT City. So these are the two topics which I would like to deliberate on. And then how is it possible to set it up in GIFT City? What are various reporting or compliance requirement? And where are there still gaps in terms of what are we still missing out for, both on the regulatory side, on the tax side, on the mindset, for participants, for taxpayers to come into GIFT City. So I prepared a short slide deck, and I'll just share my screen. Please let me know if it is not visible. Yeah. I'm assuming this is visible now.
Yes, it is.
Perfect. Thank you. So I think while we may speak on two specific topics, which could be family offices in GIFT City and holding companies, it's important to get an introduction on GIFT City, what the regime is in GIFT City, how did it set up, and where we are today. And for that, we should understand a little bit of background. One second, I'll just... So the journey is not a short journey. The journey has been since almost 20 years, I would say. As I said, it has become more prominent in the last few years, which is 4 or 5 years, and we will discuss why it is more prominent today than it ever was. Is that in the year 2005, first time the Special Economic Zone Act was amended to approve International Financial Services Center. Till that time, there was no concept of IFSC in India. These offshore zones we would have heard are very prominent in global jurisdiction, something like Mauritius, Singapore, Dubai, and many other jurisdictions. And what this offshore center means is that while the center is in India, in the mainland within the country, it gets special fiscal incentives for foreign exchange or for forex transactions to be undertaken in that zone. Anyways, the conceptualization happened sometime in 2005. But let's look at the journey from 2005 to 15 was quite a dormant journey, if I must say. 2014 is when the Modi government got elected, and it is only in 2015 that this particular region in Gujarat got the approval as IFSC. So 2015 is where GIFT City, in that sense, got the recognition because it got the tag of International Financial Services Center under the SEZ Act, which was amended in 2005. Having said that, again, from 2015 to 2019, and this is probably also visible in the journey and in public reports, we didn't see a lot of activity in GIFT City. The objective remained same today, what it was in 2015, that you want to really onshore the offshore. You want to encourage foreign exchange transactions to happen in the country as against all of these happening in overseas jurisdiction. But no material activity undertook up until 2019. And I would say a very positive radical step which was taken in 2019 was enactment of IFSCA Act and establishment of this International Financial Services Authority. What this authority and act was is that if you were to set up a financial services unit in GIFT City, you had to go to various regulators. 4 main regulators being Exchange Board of India, Reserve Bank of India, Pension Fund Regulator, and Insurance Regulator. And of course, that was not ticking the box in terms of ease of doing business. So what government realized is, and with due credit to government, they were very receptive to these suggestions coming in from the taxpayer bodies, is that in 2019, this law got enacted, and within a year or less than a year, I would say, in 2020, International Financial Services Authority, which is a unified regulator, where if you want to set it up in GIFT City, you only need to approach one authority, was set up. And I think it is in 2020 that things changed. Yes, it was COVID year, 2020 and 21, maybe one would say that things would have died down, but actually reverse or opposite happened. And after establishment of IFSCA, the International Financial Services Authority, things really picked up. There was a lot of buoyancy, both from resident as well as non-resident investors, in terms of how do you create a presence in GIFT City, not necessarily only for tax savings or tax optimization, but also in terms of ease of transactions. And we'll again discuss all of this, why these are advantages. Ease of transactions and especially for financial services industry, where you would have seen that a lot of these banks, a lot of these private equity funds or venture capital funds, they are largely based abroad. So the capital remains abroad, people remain abroad, the talent remains abroad. 2020, the framework enabled that everything can be undertaken on the soil of India in GIFT City. Thereafter, well, 2020 unified regulator happened. That was a great positive for a capital market industry, for banks, for various investment banking entities. But nevertheless, some things were still missing. And what was missing was for the fund industry. We see a lot of domestic AIFs being set up in India. A lot of private equity venture capital funds outside India, money being pooled outside India. For that to happen in India, I think still we are missing, because even if they wanted to set up in GIFT City, you had to go through the SEBI regulations. radical development happened in 2022 when this fund management regulations came in. Fund management regulations enabled that whatever schemes or funds we want to establish in GIFT City, you have to go through the fund management regulations of IFSCA and not of SEBI. And this, I would at least consider, was a great positive and drastic and revolutionary step as far as GIFT City was concerned. Because what we see in India is that domestically, the funds are regulated. But globally, Singapore, London, and many other jurisdictions, it is the fund manager who is regulated. And they can set up as many, launch as many schemes as they would like. But the regulatory supervision is on the manager. That changed in 2022. So if you look at mainland India, the old regulations continue where the funds are regulated. But in GIFT City, the regulations are aligned with what the global laws are, where the manager entity is regulated. That I would say was a very positive and uplifting moment. And thereafter, as we say, rest is really history. Today, if you were to compare, just get some statistics in terms of what presence we have in GIFT City and what presence was in 2020, there's a marked difference, marked positive difference. And therefore, the result is for everyone to see. In 2023, and why I make this specific mention is that the International Financial Services Authority set up a committee that what was happening is that a lot of startups in India, while they are really operating in India, their holding companies were set up abroad, or they were being, the shareholding was implemented through offshore jurisdiction for a number of reasons, and we'll come to it. And if any advantage was to be taken by holding companies, maybe if it's a listing or if it's divestment, if it's attracting foreign capital, all of this was happening abroad. But IFSCA proactively thought of this thing that why can't these offshore companies come into India? GIFT City could be a launchpad for these kind of offshore companies coming into India. And they set up a committee to do a comprehensive research in terms of where the issues are and can such companies come into GIFT City? And if yes, what is the ideal tax framework that should be implemented to encourage offshore companies to come into GIFT City? So we'll cover that aspect as well in the later part of our presentation. Another, so coming back to the fact, I don't know if there are questions, but I'm assuming echo is okay now. Yeah, so before we jump into how come family offices can be set up in GIFT City, I think let's understand what are the objectives of GIFT City. We discussed a little bit in the past. One of the main objectives that GIFT City wants to onshore the offshore. So what is happening in offshore jurisdictions, offshore financial centers, financial transactions, financial institutions, financial products, which are undertaken by non-residents vis-a-vis India or by Indians vis-a-vis their offshore businesses. All of this has to happen or potentially can happen in India through GIFT City. And within that framework, yes, you want talent to remain in India. You want Indian firms to compete with offshore financial centers, which are in Singapore or Dubai or London or Jersey or Mauritius on an equal footing. So those were really the objectives with which GIFT City was formulated. And today, I think a number of firms are set up in GIFT City. And we will see how, while there are banks which are set up in GIFT City, there are capital market players who are set up in GIFT City, there are funds who are set up in GIFT City. And what we are covering today is that in which way family offices can be set up in GIFT City, and what are the advantages of family offices in GIFT City versus other jurisdictions. Yeah. Broadly, we will discuss specifics vis-a-vis family offices. Broadly, the benefits in GIFT City are at least broadly identified as 6 different benefits. On the right side on the slide deck, we see point number 1, 2, 3, and also 4. I would say 1, 2, 3, 4 are really one of the prominent items or are the key highlights of GIFT City? As we discussed at the beginning of this presentation, is that IFSC is the unified regulator as far as GIFT City is concerned. That eased life significantly for various financial services players. Tax regime, will come to specifics of tax regime, but tax regime over a period of 5 years, we have seen every budget introducing some of the other changes vis-a-vis GIFT City. Yes, everything cannot be thought of and implemented on day one. But today, I must say that with the amendments that we have under the Income Tax Act, a host of benefits are granted to these resident as well as non-resident players. And some of the key things which everyone knows now is that, yes, business income in GIFT City is exempt or tax holiday can be claimed for a period of 10 years. But that is probably only one item. There are a lot of other tax incentives available to non-resident investors investing directly in the stock exchanges in GIFT City, investing in ETFs. So I think government has done a phenomenal job in terms of introducing tax benefits to bolster players' or presence in GIFT City. Undoubtedly, ease of doing business and cost minimization. So we had done a comparative study in the past in terms of the cost of setting up in GIFT City versus other jurisdiction, and there's a marked difference. Costs in GIFT City are significantly lower than a jurisdiction like even like a Mauritius or Singapore or Dubai. Ease of doing business, which is not just specifically with GIFT City, but country as a whole. Of course, we've seen that in 5 to 10 years time frame, we have moved up the chain. We were ranked something like 150 plus in ease of doing business rankings, but today we are somewhere in 60s and 70s. And yes, there are some other areas which are still being developed in GIFT City in terms of infrastructure, standard of living. But I think among the tangible items, GIFT City has done a phenomenal job in terms of offering these benefits. Moving on, I think now coming to the main topic is family offices. And let's just, before we set up or think of setting up family offices in GIFT City, I think we must understand that where we are today in terms of family office structures, why family offices are moving abroad to set up, and what is it that GIFT City can do to stop this moving abroad thing and enable a platform within the country to set up family offices, both for tax and regulatory reasons. Some of the data that might be of interest and which will give a big, better background in terms of setting up family offices is that India overtook UK in terms of the largest economy in 2022 rankings. But besides that, I think key numbers to look out for is really the HNI status. The HNI status. Look at the second and the third bullet points. Is that the reported numbers suggest that there could be more than 50% rise in the number of ultra HNIs in India. That's a massive number, and approximately 85% increase in number of billionaires, and a $22+ trillion surge in the investable wealth. These are massive numbers. So today we are in 24. But maybe 10-15 years down the line, the wealth is likely to be multiplying at the level of HNI or ultra HNI. And we'll come to it that while it's great for wealth to increase, but it's also equally important that how do you protect and create a legacy vis-a-vis this wealth. Apologies. Yeah, I think again, something to support the data on the HNIs is that we would see that from last 10-year journey from 2012 to 2022, HNIs or ultra HNIs with wealth over 1,000 crore is shot up to almost 1,200. That's a big number. Again, this is an important data for us to understand is that among many countries with absolute number of HNIs or billionaires, India today ranks third, which is just after US and China. And we are only going to grow from here. And the gap between India and China is still wide for us to cover. There's just some of the data why this family office thing is important and why GIFT City is important. That yes, one portion is about wealth. But I think it is very important that the individuals create a plan to leave a legacy. Family office is something which is often considered by billionaires. But why? What are the parameters behind a thought of family office? And the typical concerns that HNIs face is, how do you create a legacy? You want the wealth to survive across generations. You want wealth to be managed appropriately, both in terms of protection and increase in value. Tax planning undoubtedly remains one of the key parameter. But in the given, in the financial environment that we are in, it's quite complex. Billionaires would not just like to stick to one country as far as preserving or maintaining their wealth. They would want to take advantage of opportunities in multiple jurisdictions. Also, with the standard of living and the manner in which families think of it today, gone are the days that families would stick to one country, the kids studying abroad, family members are abroad. The global movement cannot be undermined. So these are really concerns for HNIs today. And the solution for these concerns really lies in the concept of family office. So I think I was once asked a question that what do you mean by a family office? Unfortunately, there is no definition of family office. And on a lighter note, we were saying that family office is something that whatever family offices provide as a service. Well, it could be anything. It could range from simple wealth management to tax planning. It could range from to philanthropy, life management. So I think in this slide, you can see that there could be a number of objectives that family office can achieve in terms of strategy, in terms of governance, in terms of advisory, in terms of financial planning. But as far as the presentation today is concerned, as far as our objective in terms of how we can approach or establish in Gift City, one of the primary parameter remains investment management of the wealth of family. So that is what we will stick to it as far as this presentation is concerned. Very brief background or historical background of family office is that it is not a new concept. It is certainly a new concept, or it is a recent trend as far as India is concerned. But globally, whether in Europe or US, this has been, you can trace back, it is in Europe to 1400s or 1500s, but in the US, the Rockefeller family and JP Morgan family has been around since 19th century. So globally, it is a common phenomenon. India, yes, it's a recent trend, and recent also in terms of the opportunities now available through Gift City. I'll very briefly touch upon the types of family offices. And the reason we touch upon it because Gift City only enables single family office as of now and not multiple family office. But broadly, there are, yes, two types of family offices. One is single family and multiple family. And we'll just discuss what the differences are between single family and multiple family offices. Is that substantially, or as a concept, single family, as the name suggests, is that wealth of a single family managed by a particular legal vehicle. It could be professionally managed, it could be managed in-house, but it is a single family where wealth of that particular family only is managed. Whereas multiple family, as the name suggests, it's more like if we approach third-party portfolio manager services, and various clients can approach portfolio management services. Somewhat, I may be oversimplifying it, but it's somewhat similar to that, where there are managers or expert managers available to advise multiple family offices. Of course, if it's a single family office, the cost is going to be higher to operate as against multi-family offices. Nature of services in a single family office is going to be far more personalized. And like any third-party service providers, multiple family offices could potentially only provide standardized services and not nuanced services or client-specific services. The last and one of the important part is privacy and confidentiality in single family versus multiple family. A lot of families are very sticky about the strategy that they adopt vis-a-vis their financial management, and they would not like managers to take advantage of those strategy and apply it to some other family units. Those kind of parameters can only be maintained in a single family office and not in a multiple family offices. Having said that, I think, as I said, we will only focus on single family office because that is what is relevant as far as Gift City is concerned. again, we all know that yes, migration is a concern for India, both in terms of talent and wealth moving from abroad. Won't take a lot of time here, but just a snapshot here that if you look at 2023 reported numbers, India lost almost 6,500 HNIs who moved out of the country. And if we look at the inflow forecast in terms of top gainers, yes, Australia is there, but I would say that as far as Indian residents moving abroad, UAE and Singapore probably takes the maximum share of Indians moving abroad. We'll come to it why this is happening. Again, this comparison really on jurisdiction is only vis-a-vis family office and not generally. There may be a number of other factors which we are not addressing in this particular presentation. But as far as the movement is concerned, Dubai and Singapore is most prominent today for family offices to move abroad. And I think some of it has also been triggered because of the COVID event happening. While yes, Singapore offers an excellent regulatory environment, governance standards in Singapore are pretty high as compared to Dubai or even in India. But one of the factors which was not as often considered in the past or before COVID is the medical facilities and safety and security. And these are some of the 5-6 parameters why we've seen talent moving abroad and wealth moving abroad and being managed from abroad for global investments. So very quick table. This is, I mean, there are 6-7 parameters where if we look at it, when we talk of India, we are not talking of GIFT City yet, but why it is all less developed or less favorable as far as India is concerned, with specific comparison to Dubai and Singapore. Coming now to family offices in GIFT City. And as we discussed at the beginning of this presentation, what is important was this fund management regulations. 2022 changed the dynamics of fund industry present in GIFT City. Among the various AIFs, etc., being set up in GIFT City, the fund management regulation also envisaged that even family investments fund can also be set up in GIFT City. So far, we did not have any specific regulations for family offices, both in terms of tax or regulatory aspects. But I think with introduction of fund management regulations, this became an opportunity. What is this opportunity about? Is that, so I think if you look at the fund management regulations, there are only 3-4 sections, something like section from 104 to 107, which governs the platform for family offices in GIFT City. But within those 3-4 sections, it's quite nuanced in terms of how you can set up and what is the ability of this fund to invest globally. It is, again, I think this is a word often used in the market that this is more a light touch regulatory framework for the family investment funds. One of the beauty of this family fund in GIFT City is that the fund itself can become a manager, which means that you don't need separate entities as a pooling vehicle and separate entity as a fund management entity. Again, we discussed at the beginning that cost of doing business is very important. And with the regulatory framework of GIFT City in IFSC, this got enabled. It is a self-managed pooling vehicle. I think point 1 and 2 is largely the same. And really, as I said, single family office is important because GIFT City only enables single family office where investment is undertaken by a particular family. What is the single family is also defined under the fund management regulations. And the definition has 3-4 components. Person who are lineal as descendants of a common ancestor, spouse, widow, widowers, children. So I think first 3 bullet points were always part of the regulations when it was initially set up. Thereafter, what happened is that the fund management regulations got amended in 2023 to allow Indian proprietorship firms or partnership firms or companies, LLPs, where these are also controlled by the single family members, directly or indirectly. and that control would, or substantial economic interest would mean 90%. So as long as that definition is kicked, the investors within the mainland India are eligible to set up family investment fund in GIFT City. One of the question asked is that whether FIF is like an AOP. Answer is no. FIF is not an AOP, but we'll come to the part that what is the legal nature of this FIF and manner in which it can be set up. And but before we get there, I think it's important to understand that who are eligible to set up this FIF in GIFT City, and it is only a single family offices. And with now the amendments, legal entities such as partnerships and LLPs and body corporates, they can also be investor in the FIF, but provided the common ancestor or their lineal descendants own more than 90% as a substantial economic interest. I think the next question will be answered. The question that was asked will be answered in this slide. And this is an important slide for family office in GIFT City. That what is the structure and what is the manner in, or what are the requirements for setting up FIF in GIFT City? One of the maybe we can go clockwise and start with the structure. Is that the fund in the GIFT City itself can be established either as a company or a LLP or a contributory trust. We all know what the basic differences are between a company or LLP or a contributory trust. But I think one of the key advantage of, and this trust, by the way, the trust has to have 2-3 key parameters mandatory complied with. One is that the beneficiaries of the trust must be identified in the trust deed, and either their share of each beneficiary itself is clearly identified, or there is a particular formula based on which the share is identified in the trust deed itself. While that is not a complex exercise, but I think between company, LLP or a contributory trust, what we have seen the preference remains for a trust because it is efficient and easier to operate and administer, and it is easy to, it is cost efficient, and and I may be jumping the gun here in terms of moving on to slightly another topic, but a trust also helps in achieving broader objective of succession planning, where family would want to ensure that at the demise of a particular or the main individual or individuals within the family, how the wealth is distributed among the beneficiaries. So there is no AOP, but yes, you can set it up as a company, LLP or a contributory trust. Depending upon the nature of the trust, it could be assessed to tax as an individual, but that is more in terms of the assessment, but the setup is in the nature of company, LLP or a contributory trust. The next point really is in terms of the corpus, and this is quite important because most of the time what we see, whether it is in mainland India or in GIFT City, is that there are various net worth requirement for funds set up in GIFT City or even within India. What the government has done as a special measure for FIF, that there is no net worth requirement. But as long as the FIF achieves $10 billion within 3 years of corpus requirement, that should be good enough. Another coming from clockwise now to borrowing is that the vehicle itself in GIFT City can also engage in leveraging activities depending upon their risk management policy. So they can borrow money in order to undertake investments as well. The contribution side we discussed slightly in terms of who can contribute to the family investment fund in GIFT City. It is only by family members, etc. From a regulatory perspective, from a FEMA perspective, that investment will only be categorized as an OPI. We'll come to details in a bit. And the last bit is the nature of this FIF. It can be open-ended or closed-ended, which means that open-ended in the sense that family members or their respective private limited companies or LLP can contribute at any point of time. Closed-ended is that after a particular point of time, additional contribution cannot be made into the family investment fund. What are the permissible investments which can be undertaken through GIFT City? Is that I think this is one of the big thing as far as the fund framework is concerned. If you look at the possible investments, it is very widespread. There are securities, there are debt instruments, there are mutual funds, there are money market instruments, there are derivatives. FIF can invest in LLPs and startups abroad. It could also invest in, if you look at point number 6, it could also invest in physical assets such as real estate and bullion outside India. So in terms of the ability of FIF to undertake investments abroad, it is, I would say, quite massive and really covers the entire scope, depth and breadth of potential investment opportunities by any family offices. Coming to what are the tax incentives, what we discussed so far is that yes, there are concerns for HNIs in terms of protecting their wealth, in terms of ensuring legacy, in terms of ensuring succession, and in terms of increasing the wealth. All of this can happen outside India, all of this can happen in India. Gift City offers a platform and you can set up the FIF in Gift City in a particular framework. But then we all speak very often in terms of, yes, there are tax holiday benefits in Gift City. We all know that the period of tax holiday is 10 years out of a block of 15 years. So yes, that tax holiday exists. But whenever we advise or whenever we structure FIF, we should be mindful of the fact that the nature of income of FIF may not necessarily be business income at all points of time. It may earn income in the nature of capital gains. It may earn income in the nature of dividend income. Those type of income is not subject to or is not eligible for tax holiday. That is something that we must keep in mind before advising on the framework for FIF. Having said that, yes, whether it's a LLP or whether it's a trust, at least what can be achieved is only one layer of tax. So, for example, I discussed about the trust structure. Trust structure will ensure that, and if it's a contributory trust where beneficiaries are identified and it's a determinate trust, then there is only one layer of tax where beneficiaries are effectively liable for tax. So let's say if there is an overseas beneficiary or overseas contributor eligible for some tax treaty benefits, those benefits will be available to the investors in the FIF as well. Having said that, there is no dual layer of tax. There's only one layer of tax. So it doesn't mean that the trust will pay tax and the beneficiaries will also pay tax. So that's the portion on the tax holiday. We move on to minimum alternate tax, where we all know that yes, it's a reduced MAT rate. And even though if the company in Gift City may have adopted for the concessional tax regime, which is in section 115 BAA, they would continue to get advantage of tax holiday benefits as well. Certain other benefits, I won't dwell much on it, is that there is no GST which is levied on the management services or any business income charged by the units in FIF. And as far as non-resident investors are concerned, the tax rate remains 10% on dividend distribution. There are a whole host of other tax incentives in Gift City, but since we are restricting ourselves to family offices in Gift City, we're only discussing what are the relevant tax incentives. So we discussed in terms of why family offices are being set up. Yes, there is something which is there in Dubai, Singapore. Gift City offers a great opportunity on a platform. And there are some tax incentives. And what is the regulatory framework to go into Gift City? So what are the typical structures that we have seen and to set up in Gift City is as follows, is that you would see one concept from an exchange control perspective. Of course, we will discuss about OPI. But if a family investment fund is set up in Gift City, as far as the resident investors are concerned, both resident individuals and Indian entity can invest in this FIF for investments abroad. We saw the bouquet of investment opportunity as well in terms of listed companies or unlisted companies or startups, or even mutual funds or debt instruments abroad. Likewise, this is vis-a-vis resident. Likewise, this is vis-a-vis resident investors, and we also see that vis-a-vis non-resident investors, it is even wider. Vis-a-vis non-resident investors, which are NRIs or foreign entities. Again, whatever we discuss in terms of investor category, it has to satisfy the test of single family. Once that investment is undertaken in FIF, since FIF is located in Gift City, I think CA Sudha madam discussed yesterday that it is from an exchange control perspective, from a FEMA perspective, the fund or vehicles in GIFT City qualifies as a non-resident or a person resident outside India. And therefore, for a person resident outside India to undertake overseas investments, there are no limits or no conditions which otherwise it would apply for investing from India. So these are broadly the structures for single family offices to undertake investments through FIF. Now, having said that, yes, we discussed everything in terms of the positive aspect of it and what you can do to set it up in GIFT City. Sorry, I'm trying to move the slide, but it's not happening. One second. Yeah. Then we speak of the regulatory considerations. And this is where I think, while it's a great thing, there are also some challenges here. August 22 amendments in the OI regulations changed everything in terms of what investments can be undertaken abroad. And while there have been a number of changes, and I think most of it were also discussed yesterday, for today's presentation and today's discussion, we'll only stick to what is relevant from a family office perspective in GIFT City. Is that under the new rules, unlisted investments abroad qualifies as ODI. Individuals, you and me, could not have undertaken investments abroad in financial services entities. If we were to invest abroad, let's say there is a fund in Singapore where we want to invest. While that was permitted, or that is permitted under the OI regulations, that individuals can undertake OPI investments in regulated overseas fund. But as the name suggests, that the fund should be regulated. So, for example, if I want to invest in a overseas fund in Singapore, the problem could be that in Singapore, the regulations don't regulate the fund itself. They regulate the investment manager. So therefore, this has always been debatable that can I really undertake this overseas investment? While it may have been permitted under the OPI schedule for individual investors. All of this is something which investment through GIFT City is taken care of. And Schedule 5 of the overseas investment rules permits investment in IFSC by a person resident in India. This is qualifying as an OPI, overseas portfolio investments. So we'll just do a very brief snapshot in terms of this investment if you were to undertake directly without considering GIFT City, or if you were to go through GIFT City. So as an individual, we of course know that the limit of $250,000 will apply if you were to make overseas investment. What is important if we look at item number 3 and 4, while the rest all are permitted through some or the other conditions, item 3 and 4 are important. And as an individual investor, I could not have invested in real estate or bullion abroad. I could not have invested in unregulated funds, as I discussed previously. But I could do all of this through GIFT FIF. As a single family office, we can set up a GIFT FIF, remit money, $250,000 into the FIF, and the FIF can undertake investments in real estate or bullion abroad and unregulated funds abroad. So it really opens up the opportunities for undertaking investments outside India for single family offices. Likewise, while this is only for individuals, we must keep in mind that it is also relevant for private limited companies or LLPs of individuals as well, which is forming part of single family office. I think this is the slide for investments by non-financial services entity. So I'm not covering investments from Indian financial services entity, but I think if there is a single family office or a family which has unlisted entities in India which are not engaged in financial services, again, look at the last column in terms of the GIFT FIF. The opportunity is immense to invest through FIF. Whereas if I were to do a direct investment, there are restrictions. There are restrictions in terms of ability to invest in real estate or bullion. There are restrictions to invest in startups. startup is one of the biggest avenue for family offices investing, whether in India or abroad, because the potential is quite high. And if I were to invest in overseas startup, I can only do it under the ODI route through internal accruals. But if I were to set up family offices, the business would be wide. I'll come to the fact on the question that is asked in terms of whether the limit would be 4 times. The answer is no, because what happens is that companies, unlisted companies here in India that we would want to use for investment, this is categorized as OPI and not ODI. So once it is an overseas portfolio investment, the condition that I can only undertake investment to the extent of 50% of the net worth will apply. So I may not be able to invest 4 times the net worth, but the limit is really 50% of the net worth. While that is the limit under the exchange control regulations, we should also keep in mind that the fund, family investment fund itself, requires a minimum corpus of $10 million. So if a LLP or a unlisted non-financial services entity of a family office, single family office were to invest through FIF in Gift City, they should have a net worth of at least $20 million to undertake this or to take advantage of this gift FIF. But having said that, once the money is pulled into the gift FIF, the opportunity for investment abroad is quite wide. We discussed so far everything on the regulatory framework, tax framework, exchange control framework, that what happens if you invest directly, and what is it that Gift City FIF can change for your overseas investments. And various benefits associated both on the tax side and on the regulatory side. And we should, I think, now understand the process of registration, the process of compliance. Is it onerous? Is it easy? How do you operationalize your FIF in Gift City? And therefore, are we really still comparable to a jurisdiction like Dubai or Singapore, or are we far off yet from those jurisdictions? So very briefly, again, this is a very quick snapshot. There may be a lot of nuances vis-a-vis each and every leg of setting up office in Gift City as a family investment fund. But like any other, and the process is not very different than any other entities that one would want to set it up in Gift City under the IFSC regime. But broadly, there are 5-6 steps that one would need to undertake. The first being, one would need to go there and identify a space depending upon the requirements. Once the space is identified, the developer or the co-developer will issue a provisional letter of allotment. This provisional letter of allotment becomes the basis to approach the SEZ authority and the IFSC authority to seek the relevant approvals. Of course, SEZ approval is more in terms of the office itself, and IFSC approval is also in terms of the activities that the legal entity would like to undertake. And both have particular or different time frames. But having said that, it is definitely not a cumbersome process. Once the approvals are given, there may be, I'll come to very briefly in terms of timelines. Once the approval is available from SEZ as well as IFSCA, then really it's only about technicalities that one would need to complete. You execute a bond cum legal undertaking, seek various registrations, which are GST, IEC, etc., etc. A lot of it is online. You, I will not mention here, but of course, the office space has to be operationalized. You need to have adequate infrastructure, laptops, network requirement, Wi-Fi requirements. No, not very onerous, but once we tick the box in terms of what the requirement is prescribed under the law, once the approvals are in place, the FIF can be operationalized. I will slightly qualify this slide here is that as of now, and again, we'll discuss it in slightly more detail, is that FIFs have not been able to set up or get approvals from IFSC and RBI for various reasons. We'll discuss that, but it's probably as is reported in various media report, it's only a matter of time till certain items are clarified. All of these steps, what we've seen is that it can take anywhere from 4 to 6 months. But as I said, subject to timing that the approval process itself may take. and whether there are any conditions associated with approval. Yes, I think this presentation, of course, will be shared. It has already been shared, but we'll email it to the officials at NRC, and it can be released thereafter. One of the topic that we discussed at the beginning is that, of course, anybody would like to ensure that the cost of doing business is low. And these are visible in this slide that for an FIF to be incorporated in GIFT City, whether we application fee is only $2,500. Registration fee may appear to be slightly on a higher side, but compared to global requirements, it is quite low. The annual fees is simply $2,000 as far as the IFSC authority is concerned. SEG application annual fees are also quite nominal, I would say, as compared to other jurisdictions. So I think if we look at, once let's say this approvals are in place, cost of doing business, there are, again, these are only registration or licensing costs. There will be operating costs in terms of appointing a principal officer there or key managerial personnel, office rents, infrastructure or overhead cost. But nevertheless, it is going to be quite less compared to overseas jurisdiction. And this, I would say, is also one of the key reasons why GIFT City should be favored for setting up family offices. So again, having discussed the regulatory requirement, having discussed the tax bit, having discussed the cost of registering and operating from GIFT City, we can very comfortably state that what we had seen in one of the earlier slides as Dubai, Singapore, and India was way quite far on many aspects, on many parameters. But if you were to replace that India with GIFT FIF, we are extremely competitive. Cost of doing business, as I mentioned, is quite moderate. I would say among the three jurisdictions on this slide for comparison, Singapore is the costliest as compared to Dubai, and GIFT FIF is still cheaper compared to Dubai. So definitely cost is a big factor. Business environment, we must keep in mind that Dubai and Singapore has been offering various incentives or infrastructure and regulatory environment since decades. India and GIFT FIF has just evolved. So I think it will take its own time in terms of the environment and the regulatory regime that we have. But we are definitely evolving. We are being taken note of. And there is a lot of eagerness on family offices, whether they are NRIs or local billionaires, to invest globally through GIFT City. Human capital, again, this is one of the key things. Of course, you want the right talent to sit on your businesses. There is no dearth of talent available within India, but yes, within GIFT City, it will take some time for talent to move into the zone and locally available, which undoubtedly in other jurisdictions, this is not an issue. Infrastructure-wise, today, it is pretty much developed, one must say, and there are no hiccups in terms of the required infrastructure to operate a FIF. Finally, I think what we can speak in terms of what are the key takeaways for us to incorporate and comply with to set up a FIF in GIFT City. What are the regulatory requirements? I think certainly businesses and billionaires are considering GIFT Family Office or FIF framework. It's a great opportunity for global investments. It's already in the news that Premji family got in principle approval to set up family office in GIFT City. It is only in principle approval yet. And here I would like to just pause and speak about the fact that IFSCA through RBI, of course, is concerned because it should not happen that GIFT FIF becomes a platform to export or really deprive India of the foreign currency. It should not become a platform for Indians to freely remit foreign currency abroad. Yes, there are restrictions in terms of LRS. There will be restriction in terms of the OPI investment regime where one can only invest 50% of their net worth. But once it moves into FIF, there are no limitations, right? It could do all of the things effectively, which otherwise under the ODI and OPI regime may not have been possible. And therefore, of course, there are concerns. And recently in February or March, the chairman at IFSCA did make a statement that yes, as far as overseas family offices are concerned, there is no concern because they can set it up in GIFT City and invest in India or globally. As far as the Indian money is concerned, which could fly abroad, there is concern, and rightly so, that regulatory authority would want to ensure that the rules and regulations are complied in spirit. So it seems, I mean, the statement indicates from IFSCA chairman, statement indicates that there will be clarity in 2 to 3 months time in terms of how these structures will operate and whether there will be any amendments to the current framework for family offices in the city. And I think the other bit is related point is that today there are a lot of applications pending before IFSCA for FIF approvals. And once the regulatory regime is clarified, once RBI comes out with the fact that what kind of structures they would permit, I think there will be no looking back like the way it happened for the fund industry. In all of this, I think the only thing one would need to keep in mind is that GIFT City is not a platform where income is exempt as far as family offices are concerned. Certain kind of income can get exemption, which could be business income. Having said that, the platform definitely offers only one layer of tax, and there is unlikely to be a dual layer of taxes. In all of this, yeah, I think these are the things in terms of setting up family offices in GIFT City. I'll just take, before we move on to the next topic for holding companies in GIFT City, I'll pause for a moment. I'll see the chat box if there are any additional queries on this particular topic, and otherwise we'll move on. Okay, I think there are no further questions. So then maybe we can move on to the next topic.
Yes, sir,
Yeah.
please.
Great, thank you. Next topic is something which is again, while relevant for GIFT City and what is it that we are seeing today, is that this is not something which there is an actual framework which exists today. The expectation is that there are a lot of movements on this particular topic within India. As I said, IFSCA has already set up a committee which gave its report. So this is more a preparation for a potential changes, which either it may be introduced through budgetary amendments this year or in the coming years. But could this also enable and really open up avenues for setting up holding companies in GIFT City? That's the idea to discuss in this particular topic. Before we go there, this is really relevant for startups. And the reason we say startup is, of course, because that's where the entrepreneurial activity today exists. We all know that India has accelerated and jumped up quite high in terms of the number of startups, in terms of quality of startups. There may be failures, there is no doubt about it. But nevertheless, the ecosystem today in India is phenomenal, both in terms of access to capital, access to talent, technological platform for startups to grow, and a number of other things. Government support undoubtedly has been there since 5-6 years. So where we stand today, a brief snapshot in terms of where we stand today in terms of startups is that some of the numbers that are highlighted in this slide deck is that whether it's number of startups, number of incubators, funding for startups, everything has multiplied not just once, twice, but 7, 8, 10, 15 times. Today, we are third largest ecosystem for startup world over. That's a massive growth. Unicorn is a term used for a startup valued at more than $1 billion. We used to be counting only on our fingertips on the number of unicorns. And today we have 100 plus unicorns in the country, with Bangalore being probably the unicorn capital of India. Very quickly to go through the growth story, we would see on the left side of the chart, I'll only limit to this portion as yet, is that like we saw in the wealth on the first topic for family offices in GIFT City, where we were standing third in terms of number of millionaires. Even in terms of startups, unicorns, we are third. And we are not very far behind China as far as the unicorn numbers are concerned. These are all encouraging numbers, and encouraging in the sense that therefore India offers a great platform for startup. But nevertheless, having said that, some things are moving abroad, right? What is called in the Indian context or globally is a flip structure, where the company is in India, the founders are in India, but the shareholding is happening from abroad, and therefore the value is sitting in a foreign shareholding company. What is therefore, before we go to why GIFT City is relevant to bring the shareholding back to India, it is relevant that what happens in a flip structure is that there is an Indian operating company with Indian founders, but through various structuring, the manner in which the Indian operating company is held is through overseas holding companies. Indian founders also own shares in these overseas holding companies. Either they move abroad or there are other structures where they hold these overseas holding companies. And of course, foreign investors also coming into the overseas holding company. Now, if you were to take a step back in terms of, so what if the shareholder is outside India, but the company, the operating company is in India? I think what happens then is that the value is sitting outside India at the shareholder level, at the overseas holding company level. Capital is coming at the overseas level. If a listing has to happen, it is happening at the overseas level, overseas holding company. Yet, I mean, there are some framework available, but it's not fully. We don't have full capital account convertibility. So overseas holding companies cannot easily list in India. So they are all listed abroad. And therefore, who again benefits out of that listing or value unlocking abroad is foreign investors or foreign audience. Therefore, and a lot of startups have realized that listing in India is quite productive, quite fruitful, and undoubtedly profitable. We've seen that with Zomato, we've seen that with Nykaa, where Indian listing is turned out to be very profitable. And with those examples, what is happening is that founders are considering that instead of this overseas holding company, we should either directly own the Indian operating company or at least have an Indian holding company to own Indian company. For startups in India, the value is in India. A lot of these startups have also expanded world over. They would have subsidiaries or companies abroad where technology is quite advanced, like US, Singapore, London, Israel, and many other countries. So this has become a key concern for India, for Indian government, and for Indian audience, and for all of us as taxpayers, that Indian startup is really owned by foreign entity. There are a number of reasons for this to happen. That why investors moved abroad or why founders moved abroad whenever this flip was considered. Some of the factors, again, this is not an exhaustive list, but some of the factors for Indian founders to set up holding companies abroad is one of the key things was access to foreign capital. The dollar money sitting abroad is quite huge in terms of quantum and in terms of timing up to which they can grant this capital. The thought always also was that companies, startups in India may not get the valuation that they desire in India because probably Indian audience may not appreciate the kind of technology which is being used by these startups. Of course, they were proven wrong. But what was happening in the past is that with the fear that they may not get the value in India, they were moving abroad. In foreign jurisdiction, of course, there is a lot of intellectual property protection available. It's ease of operations. All that we've discussed in the past in terms of, yes, there are advantages in overseas jurisdictions. And tax, it's like the GAR provisions, right? That tax avoidance should not be the main or the principal purpose, but it could be one of the main purpose. So that's what is happening is that tax is also becoming one of the main reasons for any structuring. And likewise, for these externalization or flipping abroad, tax was one of the consideration. And some of them are listed in the slide deck. That corporate tax in Singapore, US, UK were low compared to India. These investors abroad also got a lot of tax exemption exemption by way of participation exemption or capital gains exemption, what it really means is that when they invest in other jurisdictions through these overseas holding companies, and let's say in some of the jurisdictions there has been either sale of shares or the holding companies receive dividend, it is considered as exempt in their home jurisdiction. So on that basis, yes, this regime existed, and therefore Indian founders moved abroad. I slightly touched upon it that what is the key impact, right? That Indian founders moving abroad, what's the loss that India suffers? And we've seen that of the 100 plus unicorns we spoke about, almost 56% are domiciled offshore, which means their shareholding is abroad and not in India. Popular jurisdictions, as far as these holding companies are concerned, is US, Singapore, UK. Again, therefore, what happens is that value creation is happening abroad, capital is abroad, management is abroad, talent is abroad, even though the operating companies are in India. So there is a significant loss, both in terms of tax and in terms of our aim, where we want to grow at a particular level as an economy. This could become one of the obstacle or one of the roadblock for expanding our economy. Some of the other impact, of course, is the brain drain, local talent moving abroad, loss of intellectual property and technology leakage. We all know that IP protection in India or the laws to protect IP is not as robust or as strong and as quickly implementable in India as compared to other jurisdictions. Singapore, UK have robust, for example, as far as tech industry is concerned, UK probably, based on what is available in public domain, UK probably is among the best jurisdiction to locate your IP. So again, there are these number of factors where shareholding moved abroad. But having said that, things are changing. Founders' mindset is changing, and the trend is changing. What is this trend? If you can quickly really understand what the trend is in the next 10, 12 minutes, what are available time we have, is that the biggest advantage, as I discussed, is the listing in Indian capital markets. The fear earlier was that Indian capital market may not recognize the value of these companies, but they were all proven wrong. Today, companies like Nykaa, Zomato, they are all listed at a good value. And therefore, this is encouraging these founders who are domiciled offshore to come back to India. There is no dearth of venture capital funding in India than what it was probably 10 years back. And undoubtedly, we have a young demographic. So these factors are really becoming critical for founders to rethink. Should they remain abroad or should they come to India? And one of the big thing also happened was that the Economic Survey 2023, the government itself highlighted that this reverse flip should be accelerated. And in order to do that, again, these are all broad parameters, but what is it that the government can undertake as a message to taxpayer and government alike to implement and encourage these founders to come back to India? Some of them are the process of granting IMB certifications to startup should be simplified. ESOP taxation should be simplified. I mean, this is one of the big issue, right? That while there are some benefits being granted, but when ESOPs are taxable at the date of vesting, at the date of exercise, even though the employee may not have any liquidity, is a big concern today as well. Nobody would want to go or pay tax today when they have not even realized the benefit of their ESOPs. And some of the things, of course, in terms of multiple layers of tax and the procedures involved, tax litigation involved, all that has to change for startups to come back to India or the shareholding of the startup to come back to India. Very latest news, I thought to really give it on the slide, and this was just a couple of days back. We all know what value Flipkart would command or Amazon would command. And this is a reported news that alongside many other players, even Flipkart is considering. Today, the Indian company in Flipkart is owned by Singapore company. So the shareholder is not in India, the shareholder is in Singapore, and that is owned by Walmart. We all know that. They are also considering that for them to list in India, the shareholding is moved back into India. And Flipkart is not a company which is valued at few $1 billion. It is more than $30 billion It commands value more than $30 billion. So it's massive. And even they are considering to flip back into India. Reportedly, PhonePe is already flipped back to India, and I think they paid, the investors coughed up almost $1 billion of withholding tax to do this reverse flip. Grow, again, very recent news just a week back, where they have also flipped back to India by way of an inbound merger. And there are a number of other startups which are keen to flip back. Some of them are Razorpay, Zepto, Pine Labs, Meesho. A lot of these startups are considering that should we now flip back to India? Because the thought process, what was there when they flipped abroad, has all changed. And one of the big change was the capital market valuation, besides tax. Before we jump into what is the recommendation by the committee in GIFT City, is that let's understand what are the broad options available and what are the tax consequences for each of these options. And therefore, what GIFT City can do. Some of the options for onshoring is that, let's say, we've listed it on the slide deck, but I think 2-3 common options that are generally considered, as for example, Grow is considering, is an inbound merger. Inbound merger, a foreign company merging into Indian companies, tax exempt, but subject to various conditions, which may not be possible to satisfy in each and every transaction. Other thing being considered is share swap, which means that the founders will swap their shares of the overseas company, and against that swap receive shares of an Indian company. Therefore, what will happen is that they become directly shareholders in the Indian operating company, which may potentially go for listing. But that is not a tax-free transaction. Right? Swap is also a taxable transaction. And therefore, if we are, for Flipkart, if we are considering a valuation like $30 billion, it could be huge tax outgo for these kind of structures to be implemented. I'm only talking of tax, but there could be a lot of other exchange control issues, there could be regulatory issues. So one will have to arrive at the right structure for reverse flipping into India. In this context, very importantly, very timely, the IFSC and GIFT City set up a committee to give recommendations in terms of when the objective of GIFT City is really to onshore the offshore. Can GIFT City not be used as a platform to do this? And the thought process came in here also because if you look at the fund industry, which is the fund management industry and AIFs, etc., GIFT City did something similar. A lot of these offshore funds which are abroad, which with investors from outside India, the fund set up outside India, but investing into Indian jurisdiction, including probably offshore jurisdiction. The law was framed over a period of time that this fund which is sitting outside India can move lock, stock, barrel into GIFT City with certain attendant considerations and grant tax exemption, entire tax exemption. So for non-resident investors, if they were investing, for example, in a Mauritius fund, and if they were to move to a GIFT City, as such, moving to a GIFT City would have been a taxable event where the fund itself may have paid tax because they will not be owner of shares of an Indian company. Now the fund in GIFT City will become owner of these shares. So there will be transfer of shares. As far as the investors in the fund are concerned, also they will exchange their investment in the overseas fund with units or shares of a fund in GIFT City. All of this has been exempt today, subject to certain conditions, of course, but the formulation was such that it is as if nothing has changed if you move into GIFT City as far as the fund industry is concerned. If that is being considered, why not similar thing be undertaken for holding companies? And on that logic, IFSCA and the committee did a phenomenal job to understand the issues in terms of what the industry is facing to reverse flip this overseas shareholding into India and what can they do. So suggestions are quite comprehensive. Suggestions by the committee is it is comprehensive. It's not just covering tax law, it covers the company law, it covers other exchange control framework. But I think if you have to look at only some of the suggestions which the committee gave, I think I already discussed this, that the committee was set up. What are the terms of reference of the committee was to suggest measures to encourage these startups to move into India, especially GIFT IFSC. In the process, committee identified what potential issues could arise and how could these be resolved. And it gave a lot of suggestions in terms of how GIFT IFSC can become a platform similar to funds, also for holding companies. I'll just skip this slide. There's, I think, so what are some of the suggestions that the committee gave is really you relocate these offshore holding companies that we discussed in the past to GIFT IFSC. In the process of relocation, there will be tax leakage for the holding company. There will be tax leakage for the shareholders in the holding company. There could be Indian companies losses, which could potentially lapse because of change in shareholding, change in more than 51% beneficial ownership. And there could also be loss at the holding company level. All of these, what the committee has suggested is that if a relocation has to happen of an offshore holding company to GIFT IFSC, the law will need to be amended to grant exemption or tax neutrality in terms of relocation of these offshore holding companies. Similar to what we see in mergers, acquisitions, or other transactions, cost of acquisition and period of holding for the old investment should continue if the holding company is moved into GIFT IFSC. Essentially, you mirror in terms of the tax advantages, you mirror the advantage what a holding company would have otherwise got in offshore jurisdiction into GIFT IFSC. So something like this, if it happens, of course, it will become GIFT IFSC can really become a jurisdiction for holding companies, not just, I would say, not just for startups to relocate back now into GIFT IFSC, but even for new or brownfield holding companies, which non-resident investors or Indian residents would want to consider. So this is one of the suggestions. There are multiple other suggestions, and something that you all would know that a lot of these overseas jurisdictions grant tax exemption for dividend income and capital gains income, what we call as participation exemption. Bullet point 1 and 2 really on this slide there is that the committee also suggests that whenever this framework has been looked at, whenever government looks at this framework, whenever tax law is likely to be or possibly amended, these considerations are kept in mind to exempt dividend income and capital gains income as well. One of the, among several suggestions, I think there are two key suggestions that we should keep in mind. And whenever we are discussing or no, we are facing the issue in terms of overseas holding companies being moved onto GIFT IFSC. Today, as I discussed slightly before, is that these startups in India are not just Indian startups. They have presence in a number of other jurisdictions for businesses in these jurisdictions as well. If these startups manage these overseas companies from India, the biggest risk is whether these overseas companies can have a place of effective management in India. And this risk is real risk in the sense that if these overseas companies qualify to be having the POEM in India, their global income will become liable to tax in India. That is not a situation that any startup or any taxpayer would like to encounter. And among various amendments, I would say that this is something which is a must-have. That if these overseas operating companies, overseas holding companies are moving back to India with step-down subsidiaries in a number of other jurisdictions, there must be a relaxation in terms of guidelines for place of effective management. And no adverse tax consequences should be fastened. Angel tax, we all know. Angel tax for non-resident investors have anyways been a big issue. Angel tax was only prevalent as far as investment was coming into Indian company from resident investors. And last year's budget expanded this to non-resident investors as well. And while there are detailed guidelines in terms of how valuation can be undertaken, but I think this is one of the big roadblock if we were to consider holding companies to be set it up in GIFT City. And therefore, this should be considered by the government if you were to encourage reverse flipping. Personal tax, again, not so much in terms of direct impact, but yes, if talent also were to move back to India, tax rates today are high, but not everything can be achieved. But tax rate comparatively with other jurisdictions can be considered for GIFT City to become more attractive as far as holding companies are concerned. So I think with that in mind, one of the, yes, while we consider what are the advantages in gift city for holding companies, there have been comments by the minister that if historically these companies went abroad for tax planning, what is the basis for them to come back and ask for tax exemption? And should it not qualify as a discrimination? But again, this is something that we'll have to see how government takes it up eventually. As a summary and key takeaway, I would say that yes, there is a great opportunity for Gift City to become a hub for startups as well as a holding companies, similar to what has happened for the funds. A number of tax amendments will need to be implemented. We don't know whether they may be implemented all at once or progressively, but that is something which will be a key ask if you were to encourage Gift City for reverse flips. IP protection definitely is required, and we'll have to see the timing of amendments from the government. That's the key takeaway really as far as the FIF is concerned and the holding company is concerned in Gift City. And why Gift City can, again, as I said, catapult into family offices as well as holding companies to be incorporated in the jurisdiction. That's it from my side. I'll maybe, based on permission from moderator, we may wait for questions to be asked in the chat box and then take it up.
Yes, sir. Thanks for your session and letting us know that what exactly Gift City is, the process, the procedure, each and everything. You briefed us in a very good sense that how it is going to work, and let us know all the professionals who are seeking professional practice for the guidance to all of their clients and the seeking customers. Thanks a lot, and I would like our audience or all the joinees or all the members, any questions, so they might ask to our guest speaker.
I think there is one question probably in terms of whether Indian
Yeah, sir, one question.
is having office in Gift City. I think we all know that in principle approval was granted to one of the family, which is the Premji family, which we discussed in the slide deck. But no final approval has been given to anyone yet. Thank you. Can Gift City entity 100% subsidiary of Indian entity can invest in offshore unlisted entities further? I think so. First is that even if it's a subsidiary of an Indian entity, right? The subsidiary in Gift City will become a person resident outside India from an exchange control perspective. So therefore, to that extent, the investment from Indian entity into subsidiary in Gift City will be subsidiary. I mean, as a family investment fund, will be restricted to the extent of 50% of the OPI limit. That's one restriction. Once invested into FIF, it can undertake investment in unlisted entities, listed entities, in the offshore fund. It can undertake a number of investments. It can invest in startups abroad as well.
So we are waiting any more questions from all the attendees.
I think we've addressed all the questions. At least they were there on the chat box. Well, I think
yes, sir.
Yeah. So maybe that is it from our side, from my side, and happy to take any further instructions or requirements. Yeah, I think one of the very good question which has come up is that investment in FIF by Indian resident will attract 20%. Actually, it is TCS. Absolutely correct. Maybe I should have pointed it out while speaking in the presentation that yes, Indian individual investors remitting money under LRS scheme, it will be subjected to 20% TCS. That's right. Yeah. Okay.
Sir, one question I have. I do have one question as.
Yep.
Yeah.
Should I stop sharing the screen? Yeah, that will be better.
Yeah. So I do have one question. So there was a tax holiday for a tenure of 10 years out of 15 years. You told us about. So that's a continuous, or we can take it's as per our will.
So once it is within a block of 15 years. So once you opt for it, so let's say in year 3 you started opting for it, then it is consecutively for 10 years. You cannot
Okay.
opt in and opt out, but it is in a block of 15 years. So typically, like anyone would take, they would start taking it only when there are healthy amount of profits being generated.
Okay. Thank you. So now I would request our chairman and IRC of ICI, Abhinavji, to present a token of love to
Thank
our
you,
guest
Vishal.
speaker.
Hope that was very good, and our all the participants of today's session will definitely get the benefit of our London speaker Lokesh Shaji. And how's the session, sir? Rohit Bhattacharya, आप कुछ कहना चाहेंगे regarding our today's session?
Yeah, it was a really great one, Lokesh ji. In fact, many members also wanted that if there is not a problem, and you can share your email ID and the details if anybody wants to consult you further or take things in a different stride as far as the gift city is concerned.
Perfect, perfect. Can I put my email ID and contact details in the chat box?
No issue, sir. No issue. You can put it.
Perfectly
Sure.
fine.
I'll do that. I'll do.
And in fact, I would also say yes, because it was a very interactive session. Many members had a lot of queries which you answered very aptly, and it was a detailed one, and it was primarily related to the taxation part and the family
Business.
setup of the businesses. So from that perspective, yes, would love to. I mean, but there is still a lot of way to go forward in the gift city part as far as the taxation and other proposals are concerned. So I think many steps are still being taken and would be taken vis-a-vis, and maybe if वो 400 पार वाली कहानी होती है तो फिर यहाँ पर शायद फिर दोबारा और काफी सारी चीजें आ जाएंगी साथ साथ.
Right. Members also sending their messages like this session is excellent one, and very good comments are coming, sir.
Wonderful.
Okay, ji. Hope we will invite you soon on this our NIRC platform on different topics also. And I also request from the office team, please share the certificate of appreciation to our London speaker. Sir, this is just a token of love from our side. And one more memento, which will be courier to you, to your address also, sir.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Vishal, for moderating today's session.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much, NIRC team, for allowing me this opportunity and being a part of this wonderful session to hear out our Lokesh Shah, sir. Personally, I was so eager to know about what is exactly is Gift City, because in the recent market nowadays, no one knows exactly what is Gift City. So thank you so
Right.
much.
Done.
Wonderful.
Or,
Thank you so much. Just last point is that I think there have been requests to email the presentation. So I will email it to you all, and then I think we can take it forward from there.
Perfectly fine, Lokesh ji. It was really great, and Vishal, yes, it was a great moderation session. तो जैसे अभिनव जी ने कहा, you have been trained very well.
Thanks a lot for your words, sir. Thank you so much. I appreciate your words.
Yeah, great. Perfectly
done.
fine.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so
Thank you
much.
so
Thank you
much.
all. Thank you.
Thank you again. Thank you, Ganache. Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, everyone. Great opportunity.
It was a
Thank you.
pleasure. Thank you.